morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to our weekly review of how religion impacts humanity. This week's headlines. A suicide bomber killed at least 35 people and wounded dozens in a crowded market in Iraq's capital, Baghdad, on Monday, the eve of the al-Adha festival. ISIL fired rockets at the Afghanistan presidential palace, also ahead of the al-Adha. Turkey says part of a Cyprus ghost town is to reopen. The United Kingdom, the European Union, and the United States of America object. The Anglican Church resorts to running schools to slow its decline. 3 out of 4 Christian teenagers in the U.S.A. walk away from the church after they leave home. New research maps global assisted dying laws for the first time. Nigeria secures the release of 100 kidnapped mothers and children. Bristol Bisons gay rugby player is allowed to stay in the UK. A suicide bomber killed at least 35 people and wounded dozens in a crowded market in Iraq's capital, Baghdad, on Monday, the eve of the al-Adha festival. Iraq is marked in green in this map. Body parts of victims lay scattered across the previously bustling market, which had been crowded with shoppers buying food ahead of the Islamic festival. More than 60 people were wounded, a police source said, and the death toll could rise as some of the wounded were in critical condition. Women and children were among the dead, and some shops burned down as a result of the explosion. The attack took place in the Wahilat market in Sadr city. A terror attack using a locally made IED, improvised explosive device, was responsible, Iraq's Interior Ministry said in a statement. Video footage shared on social media after the blast showed bloodied victims and people screaming in terror. The armed group ISIL, the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, claimed responsibility for the attack, saying one of its fighters blew up his explosive vest among the crowds. Iraqi President Barham Salih called the bombing a heinous crime and offered his condolences. They are targeting our civilians in Sadr city on the eve of Eid, Salih said in a message on Twitter. They do not allow people to rejoice even for a moment. It's a sad Eid night in Iraq, the International Committee of the Red Cross said. Our deepest sympathies and sincere condolences to those who lost their loved ones. It was the 3rd time this year that a bomb hit a market in the densely populated neighborhood. In April, at least 4 people were killed in a car bomb attack in Sadr city. That blast was also caused by an explosive device which was attached to a parked car at the market. Once an almost daily occurrence in Baghdad, large bomb attacks have slowed since ISIL was defeated on the battlefield in 2017. Attacks persist, however. In January, more than 30 people were killed in a twin suicide bombing in a busy commercial area in central Baghdad. It was the deadliest bombing in 3 years to strike Iraq's capital. In a massive flare-up amid withdrawal of military by the United States from the country, 2 rockets were fired at the Afghanistan presidential palace in Kabul ahead of a speech by President Ashraf Ghani as the Muslim festival of Eid al-Adha begins. Today, the enemies of Afghanistan launched rocket attacks in different parts of Kabul city. All the rockets hit 3 different parts. Based on our initial information, we have no casualties. Our team is investigating, the country's Interior Ministry spokesman Mirwaz Stanikzai said. Ghani went ahead with his address to the nation amid tight security. This is not the first time rockets have been fired at the palace, the last instance of it being in December last year. The incident also coincides with a massive Taliban offensive across the country as foreign military forces, including the US and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, wrap up the mega troop withdrawal, which is expected to conclude by August the 31st. Turkey says part of Cyprus ghost town is to reopen. The European Union, the UK, and the US object. Cyprus is here in green. Turkish Cypriot authorities, which are Muslim, announced on Tuesday a partial reopening of an abandoned town for potential resettlement, drawing a strong rebuke from rival Greek Cypriots, which are Christian, of orchestrating a land grab by stealth. Varosha, an eerie collection of derelict high-rise hotels and residences in a military zone, which nobody has been allowed to enter, has been deserted since the 1974 war split the island. Turkish Cypriot authorities opened a small area for day visits in November 2020 and said on Tuesday a part of it would be converted to civilian use, with a mechanism in place for people to potentially reclaim their properties. A new era will begin in Maras, which will benefit everyone, said Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, who was visiting the breakaway northern part of Cyprus on Tuesday. Maras is the Turkish name for Varosha. Greek Cypriots fear a change to the area's status displays a clear intent of Turkey to appropriate it. Cypriot President Nikos Anastasiades described the move as illegal and unacceptable. I want to send the strongest message to Mr. Erdogan and his local proxies that the unacceptable actions and demands of Turkey will not be accepted, Anastasiades said. Greece's foreign ministry said it condemned the move in the strongest terms, while the United Kingdom, a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, said it would be discussing the issue as a matter of urgency with other council members, saying it was deeply concerned. Meanwhile, in the UK, in a bid to reverse the precipitous decline in Anglican affiliation, Archbishop of York Stephen Cottrell has come up with a plan to revitalise the ailing Church of England. Cottrell's vision and strategy paper proposes setting up tens of thousands of worshipping communities, essentially led by the evangelical laity. The plans reflect the growing influence of evangelicalism within the Church under Justin Welby's tenure as Archbishop of Canterbury. The plans have caused considerable consternation among the clergy. Much of this stems from the apparent desire to deprioritise the parish system in favour of groovy, yes, that's their word, I know it's 50 years out of date as a piece of slang, house churches, led by lay people rather than priests. Writing in the Church Times, Andrew Brown called the plan a suicide note, likening the proposals to the Church tearing off its buildings and its priests and rushing stark naked into a world that couldn't care less. I love that picture. But given the Church's privileged and prominent public role, it isn't only the Anglican faithful that should be perturbed. The new evangelical surge will ring alarm bells for anyone concerned about religion's propensity to impose itself where it isn't wanted. Speaking in the Synod, Prudence Daly, a lay member for Oxford Diocese, said the Church needed to reach people where they are. One place where impressionable people are, of course, is in school. Unsurprisingly, the Church of England's vision is very much focused on children and young people. According to the Archbishop of York, his strategy will involve a bolder commitment to Christian education and ministry with children, young people, and students. He says he wants to double the number of children and young people, active disciples in the Church of England by 2030. To achieve this, there will be a particular emphasis on working with children and young people and full utilisation of the resource and opportunity of our church schools. But the Church's ambitions extend beyond church schools. The C of E's Vision for Education document from 2016 makes clear its intention to influence the education of children and young people in community schools, independent schools, sixth form colleges, further education colleges, and universities. Utilising state-funded education for evangelical purposes is educationally inappropriate and insensitive to the diversity of religion and belief in modern Britain. But a combination of desperation and missionary zeal within the Church means it will stop at nothing in trying to save itself. This report was from the National Secular Society. But there's a similar story from the U.S.A. Apparently, 3 out of 4 Christian teenagers walk away from the church after they leave home. So, Frank Turek and the Cross-Examined team are committed to reversing this alarming trend. They will present a dynamic, interactive seminar that'll show you why Christianity is true and why it takes a lot more faith to be an atheist. They claim to be able to answer the following 4 questions. Does truth exist? Does God exist? Are miracles possible? And is the New Testament true? Unless truth exists, God exists, and miracles are possible, the New Testament doesn't have a prayer, so they say. A new study into worldwide laws on assisted dying has found that more than 250 million people have gained the right to die since MPs in the UK last debated proposals on changing the law. The research carried out by Humanists UK has been launched in map form, the first ever map of its kind, and demonstrates how far the UK's laws are now out of kilter with the rest of the Western world. The study also uncovered 2 predominant models of assisted dying internationally. The first, found in New Zealand and some parts of the United States and Australia, only provides assistance to those who have 6 or fewer months left to live, whereas the second, found in most jurisdictions around the globe, like Austria, Canada, Belgium, Italy, Germany, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Spain, and Switzerland, enables choice for both those who are terminally ill and incurably suffering. A similar bill is also currently under consideration in the Republic of Ireland. Helping someone to end their life is a criminal offence and carries a maximum penalty of 14 years imprisonment in England and Wales. Humanist UK's Director of Public Affairs and Policy, Richie Thompson, said, "The publication of this map makes it clear like never before that the UK's laws on assisted dying are in urgent need of review. It is highly significant that in the years since our lawmakers last considered proposals on assisted dying, progressive countries around the world have continued to roll back their bans in the face of overwhelming evidence. But it is also notable that on the rare occasions when assisted dying legislation has been considered in the UK Parliament, it has almost always excluded those who are incurably suffering, like Tony Nicholson and Paul Lamb, which is at odds with most other jurisdictions' laws. With several more countries now having passed or looking set to pass laws which will prioritise a person's quality, not quantity, of life, we urge lawmakers in the UK to pay close attention to the international consensus on assisted dying and immediately conduct an inquiry into the law." Nigeria. This is better news from the world's most religious country. The authorities in northwest Nigeria say they have freed 100 women and children, mainly mothers nursing infants, who were seized by bandits. The group were abducted on the 8th of June in Zamfara state. 4 people were also killed during the incident. The Zamfara state government said they were released without any ransom being paid, but gave no further details. The group will now be given medical checks and debriefed before they are returned to their homes. A spate of kidnappings has taken place in the region during recent months. Since December 2020, more than 1,000 people have been abducted. Most have later been freed, reportedly after ransoms were paid, but some have been killed. Since the well-publicised abduction in 2014 of 276 schoolgirls from Chibok Secondary School by Boko Haram Islamist militants in Borno State, more armed groups have resorted to mass abduction of students. President Muhammad Buhari has directed the military to flush out criminals in Zamfara and the neighbouring states of Kaduna and Katsina. Continuing with good news, Bristol Bisons gay rugby player is allowed to stay in the UK. A gay African rugby player who was threatened with deportation has won the right to remain in the UK. Ken Macaria, 41, who moved to the UK more than a decade ago, has been granted refugee status. Without it, he feared he could have been sent back to Kenya, where homosexual activity is illegal and punishable with heavy jail sentences. A campaign was started by the gay and bisexual inclusive Bristol Bisons Rugby Football Club, where Mr. Macaria is a club member. A judge found that he would be at real risk of serious harm as a gay man, and that his human rights would be breached were he to be removed from the UK. A first-tier tribunal of the Immigration and Asylum Chamber upheld Mr. Macaria's appeal against deportation. Speaking afterwards, Mr. Macaria said, "When I tell people close to me the news, they are jumping with joy and excitement. I put on a smile and pretend to share the same level of enthusiasm. But it's been a very long struggle since 2016. I have had my hopes crushed too many times. I can't help wondering what will go wrong now. The sadness has not gone away. I used to be optimistic, but it will be a while before I am again. I'm very grateful for all the support I have received. Very many people came to my aid at the time of need. The list is very long. Some I know and some I don't. But thanks to each and every one of you. It will take me a bit of time to truly believe this nightmare is over and to be at the same level of enthusiasm as you." Stay tuned on this channel for the live Q&A Freethought Hour. I have two guests this week. Tim Hull, the Christian YouTuber who was my guest 2 weeks ago, returns, just to prove that everybody is willing to come back. And joining us from Australia is science lecturer Sam Priest. This should be an interesting event. It will be starting in a few minutes, but I had to record it earlier in the day to fit in with our guests in their different parts of the world. If only it was flat. You should be able to comment live when it's broadcast at the new time, and not to ask questions, but certainly to comment live when it's restreamed at the usual time. We will be back with our weekly news review on all our platforms at the same time next week. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, set the notifications, etc. Thank you for watching.